Hello, everyone. Welcome again to another episode of Afghanistan by Afghans. Today, we're going to talk about Afghanistan a little bit more in detail, but also talk with a cultural advisor, speaker, and author, and somebody who knows Afghanistan a little bit more than I do, or maybe even more. In her own words, when I was visiting her website, I loved. As a cultural advisor, she says she will help you find your way out of the desert of stereotypes, monolithic storytelling, and cultural appropriation, all of which happens with Afghanistan and Afghans a lot in media. So I'm very excited to speak with her, talk to her about some of her upcoming projects, which is as a cultural advisor to the Kite Runner Broadway show, as well as multiple other projects that she has going on. So without further ado, welcome Humaira Jan to the show.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here.
I'm very excited to have you. So, uh, Humaira Jan, why don't we start, which I love with all guests, kind of go to the beginning. Tell us about your family's journey coming from Afghanistan to the US.
Oh, wow. Thank you for asking. Thank you for having me. Well, my family immigrated to the US in 1980. We left shortly after the Russian invasion. And I won't tell you how old I was, so you can't guess my age.
You were
Um,
just born, I'm sure.
I was a newborn when we
You're a
arrived.
newborn.
My family's journey was from it was like many immigrants, a bit scattered. My two siblings came first, and then my father followed because he was a diplomat and was targeted by the Russians and the communist government. And then the last batch of us, my mom and sister, myself and my younger brother, came last. We ended up settling in the Bay Area, and uh, this is basically where I've called home for many years now. And so today, when I look at the immigrants who are arriving, I feel so much connection, empathy for them, and compassion because my parents went through the exact same things
Hmm.
that the adults are going through, and the children are going through the same thing that me and my siblings did. So it's heartbreaking to see that circle completed again.
Right, right, exactly. Exactly 20 years later or 40 years later.
Yes, exactly.
um, exactly. And it's a whole new generation of people. Um, I know growing up in San Francisco area, there's a Afghan community in the Fremont area, pretty prominent. Did you happen to live around that area, or were you somewhere else?
Yeah, actually, we were with like the first batch of the Bay Area immigrants. We lived in San Jose at first, and then my father got a job at the Defense Language Institute in Monterey. So I finished high school there, and then we circled back to Fremont and settled there for a few years. So yeah, there was a vibrant community of Afghans, and I have to say that was probably great for my parents because they
Mhm.
could exchange, recipes, how to, find fresh cumin and best rice to make palau with and things like that. I remember pretty much every weekend,
Mhm.
all the newly immigrated families would gather. And all the kids, I looked at forward to it so much because I really felt like an outcast at school, and partially because I didn't speak the language, but also culturally, to enter, middle school was very difficult transition. So I looked forward to be able to speak fluently with someone, people who understood me. And that's kind of like how the first couple of years passed, where we just
Mhm.
looked forward to weekend after weekend.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. So you went into your childhood, which I was going to ask about, anyways, and it seems like it's was filled with cultural events and exchanges. And one of the things you do is put out these videos on YouTube where you share recipes. And I know Nowruz is coming up. Are you going to share something about Nowruz? Any specific Afghan recipes?
Oh, well, as you might know, I may have grown up having halfmayweather, the seven fruit compote during Nowruz. And I actually have a video about how to make halfmayweather. But also, I highlight the Fremont community of Afghans, as well as the videos taken in Little Kabul, which is part of Fremont. So
Right.
my vision for that was to um, give Afghans in Afghanistan a glimpse into what it's like to live in America as an Afghan and what kind of community we have built.
Mm,
So I hope everybody goes in and checks out my Nauros video. The half mewa is super easy to make and it's really delicious and it's actually very healthy because it's full of nuts and you get your liquid for the day and it's sweetened with raisins, so I love having it. But I
exactly.
also eat it with ice cream and on my oatmeal, so there are all
That's
kinds
great.
of ways to eat Afghan food beside the way your parents made it.
That's wonderful. Yeah. How long does your half mewa last usually after Nowruz? How soon do you eat it? Because I remember as a child, we just try to eat it all within the next few days of the first, of your mom making it. I wonder how long does yours last?
Well, sadly, I currently live in San Francisco. I'm the only remaining family member that lives in San Francisco now. My husband is American and he doesn't love mewa or nuts for that matter, which is very anti-Afghan. I can't even tell you. But our mewa lasts for a while because I'm the only one
Only
eating it.
one. Okay.
However, I found after 7 days, what kind of turns
Hmm.
into an alcoholic beverage because it starts going bad. So I recommend eating it within 7 days.
That's funny. I'm
It
glad. I'm so happy.
ferments a little bit. It
It
ferments a
ferments
little
a
bit.
little
It
bit.
turns into a kombucha.
Exactly. Right. Right. And that's a beautiful way of talking about a cultural element because that's something you do. You get into the culture and educating people on different film productions and stuff like that. How did you get into, or before even answering that question, what did you start off as in college and such? And then how did you get into cultural advising?
Well, I'm ashamed to admit that spent most of my teenager years and 20s really being as much American as I possibly could be. I wanted to assimilate. I kind of wanted to put the Afghan culture and people out of my mind. It was really until 9/11 happened that I reconnected with Afghanistan. And that was also because of pressure from my father, who was sick at that time. And he said, you've been very successful in your life. Now it's time to give back to Afghanistan. And he, kept asking me, did you, Katakas Gabzadi, did you talk to anyone? Did you find a way to see if you can help Afghan women and girls or in any way? So I kind of got bullied into my Afghan work. And that's when I started Afghan Friends Network and such. And I did that work for many years before I dabbled into cultural advisory. It was
Would you
really
mention what the Afghan Friends Network did? Is that a
yes.
nonprofit?
Yeah, Afghan Friends Network is a nonprofit that I co-founded in 2002, and it was a reaction to the U.S. invasion of Afghanistan. We felt as the U.S. was dropping bombs on Afghan people that we should be able to help the Afghan people. So I decided that we should focus on the province of Ghazni, not just because my father was from there, but I also felt that a lot of aid was going straight to Kabul and Herat and Mazar Sharif, places where people had interest, there was access and such. Ghazni was considered a dangerous place. And my theory always was that we have to help the people in the provinces so then they can stay where they are and within their community and flourish, as opposed to everybody immigrating to Kabul
Yeah.
or, resettling in other parts of Afghanistan. So we've been doing that work until today. Unfortunately, right now our schools are closed. So all the funding that we receive is either going towards helping some of our outspoken community members get out of Afghanistan, or we are sending money to buy food for the families of the students and the teachers.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. And I kind of we segued into that, but you were kind of getting into what inspired you to get into cultural advising. So you can continue that thought.
Yeah. So when I first started working in Afghanistan, I felt a bit like an imposter because my Farsi wasn't that great. I really didn't keep up with what was happening in Afghanistan. So I was kind of feeling my way through my work, and I was reading every book I possibly could find. Unfortunately, by then, my father had passed away. So I was not able to really dig into like what he knew because he was really the cultural expert in our family. My Farsi improved as I started going to Afghanistan and having colleagues that I talked to regularly. I started, speaking about Afghanistan and such. So at which point I really had to hone in on my country knowledge. But it was actually the Khalid Hosseini, the author of the Kite Runner, who contacted me around 12 years ago or so if I would work as a consultant on the stage production of The Kite Runner, which at that time was being produced at San Jose Rep, and it was going to be the world preview. And I said, sure. And then I was like, I really don't know anything about plays. So, anyway, that was my first cultural consulting gig. And since then, I've worked on many productions, some film, some TV. And I'm also currently writing my own play as well as adapting a podcast into a limited series television show.
Oh, that's wonderful. What's your own play about? Just a brief intro.
Yeah, my play is called Pilgrimage, and we actually received a residency from Golden Thread Productions, a very well-known theater in San Francisco, to work on the Act One of the play. It's about four Afghan women, and one African American Muslim convert who go on a pilgrimage to Mecca. And this play I'm co-writing with Bridget Duda Portman, who is an American. And I actually had worked with her before, and I proposed the idea. And the idea comes from my own pilgrimage to Mecca. But this is not autobiographical or in any way a reflection of my experiences. We've made it into a very interesting family members, connections amongst each other, and what this kind of a journey can do. It's adventurous, humorous, and lots of people realizing what is important to them.
Right, right, right. That's wonderful. We hope to
Thank
see it,
I
definitely.
hope so
Uh,
too. I mean, we
that's
hope
exciting.
we hope to have it produced so everybody can come and see it.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. You mentioned Kite Runner and your involvement, for the past decade with it, and its um, uh, you know production in on stage. When it comes to now it going to Broadway, what are the producers and directors and people involved doing with you specifically to ensure that there is cultural authenticity and a lot of its problematic elements from the movie or the book aren't carried out on stage? Tell us a little bit, kind of what are they doing and what are you doing with it?
Yeah. So, well, I was involved with the original world preview and then several of the US productions. But it's been around 7 years that the play has been traveling around the world. It's been UK, Europe, Russia, many, many places that I wasn't involved in. Actually, today was the first time I was rereading the script after not looking at it for many, many years. My hope for this Broadway production is that Afghan culture and the people are presented in a authentic way. And what I mean is that the language is reflected effectively. If I've been making extensive outreach to the Afghan community to have Afghan actors and actresses audition for the production. I'm also going to be advising on the artwork, messaging, marketing, any element that would represent the Afghan people in Afghanistan would be part of my role. Of course, the book is written as it is, and the play is based on the book. So my goal is not to change the story in any way, but to bring elements that elevates the Afghan people and is represented effectively within the
Mhm.
this production.
Right, right, right. And when it comes to, for example, the diversity of culture, specifically, it deals with, the Hazara minorities and other cultural groups of Afghanistan that you are not part of, let's say, for example. How are you kind of addressing that to ensure that the cultural, parts that you're not aware of, have not had the lived experience with, are accurately portrayed?
Yeah, so I'll go back to the book was written 15 years ago by an Afghan. So in a way, these characters have their own life and they have their own existence. They actually have their own websites and chat groups. I mean, there's a whole
Hmm.
uh, group of people that constantly talk about Baba, the Amir's father.
Hmm.
So my goal is not to change any elements of the storytelling. And
Right.
as far so, in a way, these characters, like human beings, have become alive in a way that none of us really had any idea that they would. So whether I have had a lived experience of a Hazara or not, it really doesn't matter at this point, partially because those characters were created by Khalid Hosseini and they are going to be represented as they were in the book. But I
Mhm.
say all that with the caveat that the story, whether it was originally written by Khalid or the play or this production, is not representative of all Afghans and Pashtuns and such. So we have to remember that these are individual characters within a fictionalized story that are going to be represented.
Right, right, right. And so your work, you definitely established that there isn't any changes to the story and such. Of course, although there are, for example, theatrical productions like Hamilton and such that kind of take a lot of liberty on how they are representing with the concept of inclusion and diversity in mind in this day and age versus what it was written 20 years ago. And I remember you mentioned the character of the Baba, for example, in the film. That character was played by an Iranian with a heavy Iranian accent, and he was trying to do Farsi accent, and it just doesn't work. Which is very similar to another character on another show. I'm sure you know of, United States of Al, which is played by an Indian South African who also tries to do an Afghan accent, and Afghans are like, what is that, And that sort of stuff doesn't stick, and a lot of Afghans may even find it offensive, and the very least not be attracted or supported. So how are some of the cultural elements? For example, you mentioned actors. Will the characters be Afghan? Will there be the accents will be appropriate? Uh, how? Yeah, can you tell us a little more on that?
Yeah, that's such a
Hopefully.
good job. And I have to say, I have a whole video about this aspect of Afghan or even other cultures representation where Hollywood or the media continually misrepresent us culturally, through language, through clothes. I mean, there's even, stealing of food. There's a lot of, appropriation that's going on. So that is one area I do affect, and I'm a stickler about that. There have been times where, I've had to report actors who were from our neighboring countries that wouldn't cooperate, on the language, and I had to like put my foot down with the director and say this is not acceptable. So that I take full responsibility for. The way I work is, first of all, like I said, we're doing extensive outreach to the Afghan community, to bring in, to give Afghan actors the opportunity to audition. At the end of the day, the decision to go with a certain actor or not is the director's choice. It's not my choice. But I have been making sure that the Afghan actors that I know, especially ones that have stage training. This is very important to remember that when you are in a television or film, it's a very different skill than when you are on stage. You have to have much more training and be able to project and also have the capacity to be on stage every night, which some actors don't have because that's not how they were trained. So all the Afghan theater trained actors, or a good number of them, I personally know. So I have been really encouraging them to audition, and I'm hoping that they will. And I've also asked a lot of Afghan influencers on Instagram and such to share the casting call to their network so we can get the community involved. My feeling is that the lead and a couple of the prominent roles are probably not going to be Afghans because they want big names. And also, it really has to be somebody with extensive stage experience. Having said that, my role, and this is one of the things I require when I sign a contract, is that I am given the full authority to make sure that these actors portray Afghan people in the most accurate way. Whether it's language, body language, I also work with costume, with set design. You'd be surprised by some things that costume or set designers come up with. I'm like, that's not Afghan.
A sword, maybe.
So yeah, and I even asked the casting agent to put in the casting call that these roles require you to learn Dari words and to pronounce them and to respect the Afghan culture. So those are the areas that I do influence.
That's great. That's great. Yeah, although it is kind of unfortunate that the reality which you just explained, that the main characters will not be Afghan. I wonder. I know in the casting they're kind of looking only for New York. I wonder, because a lot of Afghans who are on stage and do theater will not be in New York and LA as much. There's also a lot in Europe, but also in Afghanistan itself. I wonder, has there been any outreach activity to Afghans who actually do have the stage experience, who are in Afghanistan, been reached out to by any chance?
The reason that they are looking for actors in New York is for budgetary reasons. This is going to be a 5-month run, and they need New York actors who are going to be able to have their own housing and such. However, this production is going to go on a tour. So it's going to go to Chicago, it's going to come to LA, hopefully San Francisco, at which point there will probably be a new cast that they will be looking at, and there will be opportunity for actors that are going to that are in LA and are not able to be in New York. We have not done any outreach to Afghanistan for the political and current climate, as well as the difficulties of getting anybody brought out and then sent back there.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
that's not in the mix right now.
Yeah, yeah, sending back would be hard. Yeah. So you're dealing, I'm very happy that you've kind of laid this out. You're dealing with a lot of limitations, and I wish you luck to bring about your element of authenticity as much as you can, because obviously, when you're just putting a limitation such as, oh, the main actors can't be Afghan, it's already, you're kind of
No,
on an uphill battle.
I didn't say it can't be Afghan. I said it most likely won't be
Won't,
Afghan
yes, of course, of
because at
course.
this, to have a big name actor that has, national recognition. I mean, can you name an Afghan actor that would
Yeah.
fulfill that?
Not on theater, yeah, definitely. Not on film or TV either.
Yeah,
Yeah, right, right. Yeah. So,
but
yeah, if
that's basically what most Broadway shows have a big name actor
right, right,
involved
right.
with them, and that is what is going to be the reality. And I'm not gonna, I'm not gonna sugarcoat it and say no.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
you did say for United States of Al. To be honest with you, I mean that's completely unacceptable. An actor is trained to do different dialects, different to if a really trained actor should be able to pick up an accent. My guess is that they didn't have somebody who really knew how to help an actor learn new words that they're not familiar with. It's a very specific technique.
right.
I work with actors where we do exercises where it loosens up some of the like muscles in the back of their mouth. So they can say, ra and ho and stuff like that.
Yeah, yeah.
So for United States of Al, I really don't understand why he isn't able to say the Dari words correctly.
Right, right. Maybe there is no language coach. That's language coaching and stuff. Anywho, but yeah, I think enough of that while we spend the last few minutes learning just a little bit about what are your goals and passions moving forward with your cultural advisory role. How do you see yourself contributing and growing in the next, few years or months or more?
Well, I have gone from a role where I worked with other people, with like writers, playwrights, and script writers, to bring authenticity to their work, and usually they were non-Afghans, to now moving more toward creating my own original work. So I'm working on my play, and I'm working with two other producers to produce this limited series television show. So I am hoping that I will continue doing the kind of cultural consulting I do with non-Afghan creators, but I'd like to do my own work and have some original content that is going to get produced. So we'll see. I
That's
mean, it's one of
wonderful.
those things that the while best laid plans don't really go as you expect them. So hopefully, I do have to say that right now I'm very grateful. I have a lot of different projects that I'm working on, and one of which I'd like to plug, if possible, is called Heartland. It's a play that is going to be opening in New York on March 26th at the 59th East 59th Theater. It's a play that I have been working on for the past 6 years with the playwright Gabriel Jason Dean. And it's a subject very close to my heart because it is about the books that the CIA created as propaganda to uh, educate Afghan children to um, do jihad against the Russians. And it really was the books that were the impetus to what the Taliban is today. And it's a subject matter you don't hear about as much. It's not covered. It's kind of like shoved under the rug with the CIA. It was a covert operation that the CIA did with University of Nebraska. So I'm hoping a lot of people get to see it.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much. Well, you send us all the links you want in the description.
Okay.
I want to thank you again so much, Humaira Jan, for coming on the show. I hope and I know the audiences loved it. So thank you so much. And if you liked this conversation, there's more on this series where you get to learn about other amazing Afghans. So please go ahead and check them out. Thank you very much. And thank you so much again, Humaira
Thank
Jan,
you
once
so
again.
much. تشكر بسیار زیاد. خداحافظ. Thank you everyone for watching.